At the turn of the year, we're going to go into a series on community organizing and engagement. So I'm looking forward to that. I heard an amazing presentation this week from what's a group called Strong Cities Network. And they had brought two cities together, Philadelphia and someplace else. But they were sharing very similar work to what we're doing. It was so hopeful and exciting. And they, of course, framed it and things. And I thought, wow, this is very cool. This is so helpful, you know. So anyway, we're gonna focus on that a little bit. So it's 8 o'clock. And I want to welcome everyone to the intersection this morning where faith, community, and civic leaders come together to work more efficiently, but also to inspire each other, encourage each other, and with the benefits package of new friendships and relationships and purpose and meaning in our lives. So welcome. We're going to take about 5 minutes of announcements. So if anybody has one, I'd like to announce every year, I think it might be the 18th year, there's an annual gathering on the shortest day and longest night. It's a memorial service for all the San Antonians who have died this past year without permanent shelter in their lives. It's at Milam Park, which is the park that sits between Santa Rosa Hospital and El Mercado. Boy, I had a big brain gap there. That place across the street, El Mercado, it's that park. It's on the 21st, that shortest day, longest night at 7 p.m. I highly encourage you to go, especially if you've never been. It's so meaningful. All the names are read, as would be in a memorial service. Candles in the midst of the darkness. It's a very meaningful experience. So I really encourage you to go, especially if you've never been. Go at least once. Are there other announcements or thoughts?
Hi, it's Kendra with West Care, Texas. I hope everybody's doing well this morning and staying warm. I do have a flyer I'm going to post in the chat, but for some reason it won't upload. But Ella Austin Community Center at 1023 North Pine, the original facility, will have its second annual Holiday Safe event tomorrow from 4 to 7 p.m. And that's open to the public. There'll be gifts for the children. There'll be a free photo booth. There's going to be a lot of activities, free food, popcorn, cotton candy, and free food from food vendors. So like I said, I will post that in the chat as soon as I get a flyer that can upload into the chat, and I hope to see some of you there.
Kendra, this is Billy. I think it uploaded.
It did?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you. Thank you. I might just post another one to be safe because on my end it doesn't show it. It just shows a file.
No, it says it did, but it didn't. When you try to open the file, it says damaged. So.
Yeah, that's what it did for me too. So I'm gonna try to get that in the chat here in just a little bit, but I'm in traffic.
Yeah, we could tell you might be in traffic. Mario, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks, Ann, and good morning to everyone. I was just gonna mention, the holidays are a great time for folks to gather and celebrate, but also don't forget about the need in our community and elsewhere. And so just for the San Antonio Food Bank, if you know of anyone that wants to give help or get help, safoodbank.org. Excuse the noise upstairs, we're doing some construction, but safoodbank.org. Or folks can call 210-431-8326 to get help. And you just never know. It could be a family member, it could be a neighbor, could be a coworker or a stranger, but we're here to help and serve. So happy holidays.
Thanks, Mario.
Good morning, everybody. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning. This is
It's
Dr.
Keely.
Yes, Dr. Keely Petty. I'm so excited to announce that we have another cohort graduating. I have trained them in trauma and mental health, and now they are graduating at the Ella Austin Community Center on Friday in collaboration with the event that Kendra just mentioned. It is an exciting move going on in the community where church members, church leaders are being trained to understand mild, moderate, and severe forms of mental illness. I've heard a birdie in the community that training is so abstract and there's no human component to it. But I'll tell you this, once individuals are changed, we have an opportunity to create self-healing communities. And that's what the trauma-informed ministry model training is all about. And I'm happy to be the evangelist of this movement.
Is that in connection with NAMI, Keely?
No, it's not. West Care, Texas, Beverly, in her amazement, wrote a grant and got it to where we are training churches. It's similar to the mental health awareness training grant, but a little bit different. But we are training churches all over San Antonio, east side, west side, north side, south side. Anyone who is interested in free certified training can join the movement.
This is great. Thank you. All right, it's 8:06 and Dwayne came about a year ago and he's back. And in fact, he's back because he asked to even remain chair. And I'm going to let him tell his own story. But we started and have been, if we really think about it, we have really been gearing up across these half a dozen years, but in particular this year in terms of getting briefings from all the collaboratives, what is happening, what has happened, where are we headed? And those are now, online for people to use in their own settings to kind of bring staff and groups up to speed on what is happening between the community and in collaboratives with the city. But recently we've been really looking at how do we strengthen what is happening among the many faiths in our city in terms of service and working together. And Dwayne, and I know many of you know him, but Dwayne chose to be a part of that strategizing, beginning with the Interfaith Summit this July. And it really gave me a lot of hope to see the inspiration that came for him in this process. So that's one of the main reasons I invited him, was to really share more about the why, the why of MLK Commission, the things that we do, what does that mean? And we'll look at the events and the upcoming things, but why and vision for what that can do and where that can lead us. So Dwayne, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, and for both your friendship and for that kind introduction. I always hear stuff, and I'm always wondering who in the world are they talking about. But the reality is that there is so much work out there that needs to be done. One of my first order of business is to acknowledge the young lady who just spoke a second ago, Dr. Keely Petty. She was the former chair of the MLK Commission, so she sat in the seat that I sit in, and so she knows what it's like to sit in this seat. The why of the commission. I think the why of the commission is basically all of the things that we talked about just before we really officially started the meeting, all of the different agencies and all of the work that is being done out there. I mean, a lot of this can be not that it started with, but a lot of the concerns and the focus of the efforts can be focused on what Dr. King was doing a lot of, and that movement. People think of the movement and the work of Dr. King, and they'll put it in a silo. But for example, when you think about the work that they were doing to desegregate food establishments, the other part of what they were asking for was to see African Americans employed at some of those establishments, moved into management positions, and to be a small business contributor to those establishments. In other words, if it was a restaurant, you would buy your eggs from an African American owned business. So there's just so many things about the civil rights movement that was important to all individuals. I just made a note, and of course, seeing Doug on here and the work that he's doing over at Pathways, I made a note of mental health issues, homelessness, the justice system, medical care, and economic empowerment. All of those are things that were important to King and those civil rights heroes and sheroes of the 60s. When I became chair of the commission a little bit over 2 years ago, now the first thing that I did was ordered a couple of books on King to read, because the work is so important. It's so important to our city that for me, I just did not want to be asked the question or on radio or on TV and someone asked me a question and I wasn't able to respond in a knowledgeable manner. So now, again, almost 3 years later, and I'm probably up to about 12 books that I've read on King, and some that weren't specifically on him, but were kind of directly connected to the movement. So, so I wanted to be in alignment with King. But as I was telling Mario Obledo before we got on the phone, I wanted to also make sure that here locally, that things that were important to me, in particular, the Black and Brown relationship, that I also did some things by way of the work with King to make sure that I did my part to help further along that relationship. We know about the religious sector and everything and all of the work that we're doing there, but also a people portion of it. So typically the MLK Commission awards 3 community awards every year. One is the Martin Luther King Jr. Distinguished Citizen Award. The other is the Ari Callis Award. And the third one, the Baha'i Faith Award. And so I asked our chair of the awards committee, Francine Prosser Johnson, I said, have we ever really given anyone an award posthumously? And she couldn't really think of us having done that. So I asked her in her committee if it was okay if we awarded an individual an award posthumously, and that individual being Willie Velasquez. I just thought when you think about the work that Willie did in particular through Southwest voters, that, look, voted. How important were the voting efforts and the rights during that movement? So it ended up being a no-brainer for us to do it. So we'll be awarding an award to his widow, to Jane, somewhere. We're working on the date. We do a special event every year that we just recently added to the commission, and we have not tightened up that date yet. But so I just just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a background. I appreciate you asking that question of the why. Again, if you go back to the 60s and then you fast forward to 2024, I think you unfortunately would see a lot of the same common issues that were being faced in the 60s that are challenges that we're still somewhat facing today.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions about today. Like, so what does this mean to today? Why did you ask to stay as chair beyond what your first commitment? You said, let me stay a little bit longer. Why did you do that?
Yes, good question. And again, with Keely being on here, she knows typically the MLK Commissioner does 2 years. And because the way I came on, I essentially, the first year I was completing the term of someone else. So I had a conversation with the councilman, and he graciously agreed to allow me to stay 1 more year. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I'm a big infrastructure type of person. I don't do stuff seeking limelight or any of that. We're all supposed to be out here doing the good work. And so there were some things, again, and Keely could nod and could finish my words for me, but there are so many things with respect to the commission that needs to be improved that the outside world does not see. And one example that we're in the home stretch of is a handbook. Since day one, I've been a big stickler on the fact that when I became chair of the MLK Commission, no one gave me a book basically and said, here you go, Dwayne, this is your role, responsibilities, this is what you need to be doing. And I just thought, in particular, because we have the largest march in the country, and it seems like all of the eyes of the world are on us on that day, I just thought we weren't doing the commission and our community a good service if we didn't have order. And for me, it would break my heart if when I leave the commission that I don't leave it better than I found it, and that I do not leave the next chair a pathway to success. If you don't mind, Doug, I borrowed your title.
But you also, in addition to that, and I totally understand it. I've always been in that similar process, of wherever you are, always making it ready for the next person, because you never know, right? What's going to happen anywhere. And so leaving it better than you found it. But I also know that you have some visions for the future. And in the very near future, some tweaks that you've been working at in the bigger picture. You want to talk about those a little bit?
Sure. So I'm going to reference her so many times because she sat in the seat. But so again, when people think about the MLK Commission, they typically, their mind quickly goes to the march. And I get that. And it should, but we shouldn't lose sight of the other activities that the commission does. So we have, of course, the march. We always start off with that Friday, the Baptist Ministers Union's worship service. King was a Baptist minister. And I recall reading some of his books, and one in particular, King talks about after the house had gotten bombed. And so before King, of course, he would have conversations with his wife, but before he would have a conversation with his wife, he would have a conversation with his Lord. And on so many occasions, he had to seek divine intervention for his strength along the journey. So we have the Baptist Ministers Union is the first event. Then we'll have on the Saturday, we'll have the Youth Empowerment Summit, which will be over at St. Philip's College. And then on Sunday, we have the wreath laying ceremony and the interfaith service. again, I'll point out that interfaith service. I'll admit that before I became chair, I didn't always make it to the interfaith service. Of course, since I've become chair, I go every year. And that event is one of the finest representation of human beings that I've ever attended. It's just across the board from different economic backgrounds and, of course, from a religious perspective. So that interfaith service, again, I think also is the very definition of what King always meant when he talked about the beloved community. And then, so that's the Sunday. And then, of course, Monday is the march, which starts at 10 o'clock in the morning at Martin Luther King Academy. Then we have the march, we do the march, and then you have the commemorative program. And at the commemorative program is where we'll have, amongst other things, our keynote speaker, which I'm excited about. We'll be having Andrea Waters King, the wife to Martin Luther King III. So we will be having MLK's daughter-in-law will be the keynote speaker. For me personally, again, given the significance of our march, for us to have canceled the march this year, and I say this year because we're still in 2024, so we canceled it this year, and then you had COVID. So over the last 5 years, we've marched still, but we haven't had that impact that we typically have. And just talking to the councilman and the mayor, this couldn't be a better way for us to really put behind us the cancellation and COVID and tell the country that we're back. Because the reality is, in speaking to Martin Luther King III's chief of staff, when I spoke to her on Monday, the first thing that she said was, "You all have the largest parade in the country, right?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, but let me gently correct you. We have a march, not a parade." And the distinction being our marches, we try to mimic what was taking place in the 60s. But so that's where we are there. And then we close on Thursday, January the 23rd with the Trinity University lecture series. I don't have any additional information right now on that event other than the date and the location. The time will probably be about 5:30 or 6 o'clock. They're finalizing their keynote speaker, which they're hopeful to have today. But the other piece in conjunction with Trinity is, so the MLK Commission is made up of roughly about 20 individuals. It's actually 20 that are appointed to the commission by the city councilman. And where I'm going with this, and back to your question about the future, again, I'm big on structure. So we have 20 individuals that are on the commission, and we're lacking one. So I'm capped at 20. So I have to do something to take away, to subtract, to do an addition, to bring Trinity to the table. We brought the Baptist Ministers Union in this year. And a couple of years ago, Bishop Rosa Wilson and her pre-march program got brought to the table. And by that, I wanted everyone that had an event that was a part of the commemorative events for the commission to be at the table. And that a way we could all collectively talk about the activities and give our pluses and minuses, and then we all vote. So that was one of the big things that I wanted to do also before I leave. I wanted all of the key stakeholders to be at the table, to bring their voice to the table, but to also be able to vote collectively.
Also in this year, 24, and in preparation, we had an earlier conversation about a particular sermon of Martin Luther King's. And I don't know if you saw, but yesterday I sent it out, a knock at midnight. And tell us about why that inspired you and what your hope is with that particular sermon.
Yeah, I think what we wanted to try to do versus what we're actually gonna do was, so the knock at midnight is, I mean, all of Dr. King's sermons and stuff were Pulitzer Prize winners, if you will. A knock at midnight, if you just think about it, if you just close your eyes, you're laying in the bed and someone in need knocks on your door at midnight, you're going to open the doors to them and help them. And that's still a question that we can ask ourselves today. And so what we wanted to do in the perfect world, I wanted to take that sermon. So for example, I really can't speak for any more than the church I attend in Antioch. So every year we're going to have a special service that will be centered on King, and it is typically the Sunday. Now what we do is Pastor Kemp will preach over at Temple Beth El on the Friday, which actually happens to be the same Friday as the Baptist Ministers Union event. So we're popping around. I'll be popping around on Friday. But so Antioch goes to Temple Beth El on Friday, and then on Sunday, Temple Beth El comes over to Antioch. But leading up to the worship service part on Sunday, we always take a look at one of King's sermons and we watch it and then we discuss it. So what I really wanted to try to do was I wanted to challenge the faith community across the city of San Antonio to take that Saturday or that Sunday or whatever day that most will worship on leading up to the Monday, for everyone to take a look at that sermon. Didn't have a chance to pull that off. We're see.
Still going to do that, man.
Okay.
We're going to do it.
Okay.
We're going to make it happen.
But if you all haven't had a chance, and like Ann said, she sent it, you really should take a look at that sermon.
And all you got to do is Google it. So you can get video, audio recording, but you can also get the entire transcript. So I sent it out yesterday to our network, Dwayne, and hoping, and I got several responses of people saying thank you for sending that out. And but I sent it out to kind of start seeding, the thoughts and feelings about it. But then I plan to, right after the turn of the year, to send it out to all the congregations and encourage them to utilize it in some shape or form, to have a discussion group around it, to an adult forum, use the sermon itself, from the pulpit or whatever that case may be, but to utilize it in some fashion. I'm going to take a brief pause and I'm going to try to pin my thoughts so I don't forget what I wanted to say next, but it's 8:28. And so we try to get the most of the content before 8:30 so that people who need to get on with their day can do that. What I will say before goodbye to those folks is that Dwayne would really like to come and make visits in congregations and faith communities. But I'm sure he'd also go to organizations as well. So Dwayne, I'm going to ask you again to put your information into the chat. And so I suggested that Raindrop Turkish House might have him come and very much earlier in this conversation. And so I know that Mehmet is thinking about that. So thanks for being here, those who need to leave today. Next week, we're going to have Show with us from Dream Week, having a similar conversation about the why and what that has meant and can mean for our community. So I hope you show up to that show up. Anyway, that was not intended. So there you go. Thank you, Dwayne, for putting in your email. And I really encourage you to get with Dwayne like as quickly as possible. We all know time is short. We're just a little like a month away. It's just crazy how fast this year has gone.
And
So go
let me
ahead,
say
Dwayne.
this. Let me say this, Ann, if you don't mind. So a couple of weeks ago, I went before the church at Antioch and I asked for prayers and mentioned a testimony, and it's of course was the first Sunday after November the 5th, and as most of you may know, and if you do not already know, the MLK March next year will fall on the same day as the presidential inaugurations and stuff. So we'll have King Day and we'll have a presidential inauguration in Washington, D.C. on the same day, essentially the same time. And so for me, this King thing is real. And again, a part of the reason why I read so much about the man was because I did not want to do anything to dishonor his memory of all of the work that he did. So I found myself in a rare moment standing before my church asking for prayer because I just felt like, and I said, I hope I'm wrong, that the closer we get to January the 20th, the media is going to be like ants circling around my ankles, wanting me to make a comment that can be tied to what's going on in Washington, D.C. So I asked the church to pray for me, to give me the words to make sure I speak accordingly, also bearing in mind, again, in my opinion, that whatever Dwayne Robinson says, that the media will make it out to be like I'm speaking for every African American known to man. So I wanted to try to be mindful of those things, but I told the church that at the end of the day, I had to do three things. Number one, whatever I said, I had to speak the truth. That's number one. Number two, whatever I said, I had to be mindful of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because nobody wants to hear what Dwayne Robinson has to say, but everybody wants to hear what Dwayne Robinson, the chair of the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, has to say. It's a big distinction. And then the third thing was that I had to end whatever I do and whatever I say, I had to end it with hope. We have to have hope, no matter what the circumstances are that we're dealing with in society right now. We have to have hope. Otherwise, we as a commission and each of you that are out there doing all of this great work would need to just simply fold up our tents and go home if we didn't have hope that we were going to have a positive change. So I'm going to write an op-ed for the Express News, and I've gone through probably 10 iterations, 9 since November the 5th. But I will share with you all that my title is probably going to be something to the effect of Sticks and Stones, Words and Actions ending in Redemption. So sticks and stones, from the old kids saying of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So there's the sticks and stones piece, the words piece, because I think in this time that we're living in right now, these words that some people are using are very hurtful and they lead to actions. So sticks, stones, words, and actions, but ended positively with redemption. Because as long as we have breath in our bodies, we all have an opportunity at redemption, to redeem ourselves from something that we may have said, something we may have done. We have an opportunity to turn that thing around. So thank you for allowing me for this platform. And if anyone has any questions for me, I know we still got a couple minutes. I'm open.
Just raise your hand. Recently, and I mean very recently, Dwayne, I'm going to keep, as everybody knows, I'm just going to keep talking unless somebody raises their hand. But very recently, a retired clergy person said to me, and he was talking in terms of others as well, other retired clergy have been talking kind of thing, but how they, in fact, he used the word captive, currently feeling captive and not quite sure what to do, right? And in reference to just where the world is now, and in reference to November 5th, but you know that things are changing, and I'm not sure what to do with all of that thought. I'm still working on it, right, in my head. But listening to you just now in terms of hope, and some will even tell you that I've tried to retire this year, but it just seems like everything that we've been practicing, you know, everything before this has been more of a practice for this moment. And in my mind, so just take that one example, I think the world needs more pastors to have a listening ear than it ever has, retired or in the pulpit, you know, like we need to be talking to each other. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but it saddens me to think that people are feeling captive when we have such amazing models and history before us, like King or a Nelson Mandela. You know, somebody who's spent time being held physically captive, but never held, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Anne, if people would recall that King struggled at many times during the movement with the relationship that he had with his fellow clergymen and people of faith leaders across the country. That's the reason why he wrote the letter from the Birmingham, Alabama jail, which was directed straight to his fellow clergy persons. And then you think about the fact that, as Kerry Clack said a couple of years ago when he was the keynote speaker, he talked about what King's personal approval rating was before he got assassinated. It was in the tank. People don't, they don't remember that. But do a little homework. Go back and look at what his personal approval rating was before he was assassinated. And I see Paul in here, and when he has another picture I saw of him in the chat, not in the chat, but on the screen in his military outfit. And I think about, in reading, one of the things about King, one of the things that stand out is actually the reason why he and LBJ fell out before King was assassinated. King supported LBJ, and LBJ was very distant from King before King got assassinated because of the war in Vietnam. King, as a man of faith, he had an issue with war, and so it just, LBJ felt like, hey, I've done all this for you with the Civil Rights Act and all of this, and when I need you right now for re-election and other things, you're not with me. And the interesting thing about that was easy to see, but King was also frowned upon by many Blacks at that time, because at that time he started speaking more and more and more against the war in Vietnam and less about issues of desegregation and discrimination. It wasn't that it wasn't important to him still, but just the war, he just had a major issue with war, period. So King was not popular with the president, but he also wasn't popular with his people around the issue of war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's also one of the benefits. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's one that came out of my mouth. But by having this happen every year, it helps us to remember, of course. And you even said, do some research, read some books. But it keeps bringing it to light. It's almost like a serious collective reflection about where are we, right? What are we doing right now? And I'm grateful for that. Like, I don't know, humans, we can forget, right? And then it just starts to fade away, all the important work and strategies and actions and how to move things in different ways, And so I'm grateful that this kind of comes back, every year. It's 8:41. I saw too that Lisa Epstein is working to have you, Dwayne, to come into all those congregations within the Jewish community. Thank you, Lisa. And I encourage everyone to think about where you can invite Dwayne to come and be. And so thank you for that. And I'm going to sign off unless somebody has one more comment or question for Dwayne.
You got a couple hands up.
Oh, good. I'm missing those, but here's Kendra. Kendra.
Hi, good morning, Dwayne. It's nice to
Morning.
see you.
I see you.
And just so well spoken. And I just wanted to say, I look forward to joining the MLK Commission this year and their efforts to pull off a great round of events and March. I've been a part of helping that commission through my public service through the last 3 years. And now with my employment at West Care, there's many people here that have served on that commission, that are on that commission. And I remember the first year that I did March was COVID. And it was Jalen's first year in office. The March was officially canceled and we did it backwards, starting at Pittman Sullivan and going to MLK Park. And it was a very small group of us. And it was the first time being a girl from the farm in Iowa that I had ever participated in anything like that. And I just can't tell you how much that has meant to me. So inspiring. I find that man and his story, how much I feel honored to help contribute to his legacy and help all you wonderful people honor him every year. And the fact that San Antonio not only has the biggest MLK March in America, but in the world, literally in the world, is something to be so proud of and something I'm so happy to sign on for literally every year until the day I can't breathe anymore. So thank you for all that you do, sir. It's an honor to help you and see you and hear you. Have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you.
And Corinne? Do you have your hand up? You need to open your mic. There you
Yes.
go.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dwayne, for your enlightening and helpful comments. And my question is, can you tell us the 2 books that you read when you took the job, or recommend books that would be good for us to read?
Good question.
Okay, so absolutely. So I went off so I can grab a few of the books, but so I'm the most recent one, if you all can still hear me, that I read is King of Life. And that book just came out. Essentially, it seems like that book came out, it hadn't been a year. And so I just finished reading it, and I certainly will put in the, we'll send out an email. But so King of Life, this book is like 600
King
pages.
of Light.
King a Life, L-I-F-E.
A life.
LIFE.
Yeah, this book is 600 pages. I think I read it in 2.5 months, but this is a good one because it covers a lot. The irony is the one I'm reading now is John Lewis. It's called A Life, another 600 pager. But so at any rate, the King of Life book will definitely cover a lot of things about him. Strength to Love is a great book, which has the sermon in there that we're talking about, A Knock at Midnight. This is a great book. All of them are great. Why We Can't Wait, great book. Where Do We Go From Here? Another great book. And this one may have been my first one, the autobiography. I tried to get the writer of this book to come into town because when you say an autobiography, King was assassinated. So in the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., the writer was hired by Coretta Scott King, and they took all of his writings to make the book. So that's how they were able to call it a autobiography. But I do also want to say, I saw in the chat that you mentioned that when we talk about vision for the commission, a component that I wanted to try to add to it, and I had a conversation with the mayor about this a couple of years ago, was conflict resolution.
Yes.
I just really felt like, so think about this. We have the largest march in the country. We have the largest march in the world. How long have we had the largest march in the country and in the world? I would guess we certainly more than 10 years, probably more than 15 years or more. So, but what's next? We're not, the work still needs to be done with respect to race relations. So we can't rest on our laurels. And just observing a couple of years ago when we were really having the issues with the war in Palestine and Israel and all of that, and then we had some peaceful protesters that interrupted a city council meeting. I just looked at that situation and it just really made me think we really need to do a better job of learning how we talk to each other and stuff. So at that time, I mentioned to the mayor, could you imagine if we became the center of the nation, just like we're the center of the nation on the March Day, if we were the center of the nation on a conflict resolution component to our King activities.
Amen. Great idea.
So thanks for those conversations. And I think we're going to say goodbye. Have beautiful days and good weekends. And hopefully we'll see you next week at the intersection when Show and Dream Week will also be having the same conversation. Thanks all. You're getting thank yous in. Dwayne, can you stay a second? Just a second.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks all.
Have a blessed weekend, San Antonio.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kendra.
Kendra.
Nice comment, Paul. I saw that you attended the Poor People's March.
Yeah.
Great meeting this morning. Y'all take care. Be blessed.
Mario, my guy.
Mario, can you stick around for just 1 second?
Sure.
Just 1 second.
Okay.
And so I'll
And
start
you
with,
want me to stop the recording?
yeah.